What is going on, everybody, and welcome back. MG Marine Tech here. Exciting news from Garmin today, and they just released their LiveScope XR system. Now, this XR system is a new transducer, which is the LVS62, and the whole purpose behind this transducer is the XR portion of it, which stands for extended range. I know what some of you guys are thinking already. Garmin just came out with the LVS34. Is this a replacement for it? Is it an upgrade for it? And I want to stomp out that idea right away. They are simply two completely different transducers meant for two completely different purposes. Now, this transducer is designed for those guys fishing in deep water, maybe offshore, trolling deep waters, whatever it may be. And that is what this transducer is all about. What we're going to be doing today is taking a first glance look at it. Unfortunately, I don't have any on the water video to show you guys. This is hot off the press. I'm just finding out about it a couple of minutes ago. So we're going to be taking a first glance look at the specs, how they are achieving this extra range, things like that, what you're going to need to run this thing, and some of the questions I'm seeing asked about already. So stay tuned, let's dive in. So first question I'm seeing all over the place is, will my existing GLS-10 black box be able to run this transducer? And the good news is yes, you will simply need to do a software update on your GLS-10, and then you should be off to the races and be able to use the new LVS62. Being that they use the same exact GLS-10 black box as previous transducers, you're really not going to have any kind of compatibility issues. The second thing I'm seeing quite a bit already is people saying or asking, hey, I just bought an LVS34, am I going to have to buy this 62 to have the latest and greatest transducers? Well, the way you can look at this is that the LVS32 and 34, which were the earlier transducers, those are more shallow water transducers, and this 62, again being part of this XR system, is more so designed for deep water. So if you're a bass fisherman in that shallow water all the time, there's really no need to run out and buy this LVS62 transducer, because again, it is designed for those people that are offshore. This is bringing LiveScope to deep water essentially. My friends over at KBM Outdoors in Canada sent over to me the LVS34 versus the LVS62 spec sheet. So we're going to dive into that. I'm going to show you guys exactly how we are achieving this extra range, what it may mean for clarity, and a couple of other things I want to point out for there. So let's throw this thing up on the screen and go over it. All right, guys. So like I said, my friends over at KBM Outdoors up in Canada were nice enough to send over this new breakdown of all three LiveScope systems, so we can kind of go over some of the specs and what we can expect out of this new system. Now, the beauty of this comparison chart is that it has all three LiveScope systems on it, where we have the original LiveScope, which is the LVS32 on the right. In the middle, we have the LVS34, which is the Plus, and then the LiveScope XR, which is the new LVS62 transducer. Now, all three of these systems use that GLS-10 black box, so we are strictly talking about differences in transducers here. We're kind of going to go over some of the main differences that I see. Well, really one main difference that is really important, and then some physical features that are a little bit different. The main thing that I see difference between these two units is the frequencies that they use. So this is where it's getting its extended range from. It operates in a much lower frequency range compared to previous transducers. So if we look at these two right here, the LVS62 has a range of 282 kilohertz to 522 kilohertz, whereas the LVS34 and the 32, they're both the same, operate in 530 to 1,100 kilohertz settings. What does this mean exactly? Well, just like a side imaging transducer, the higher your frequency of a signal that you're shooting into the water, the higher clarity you're going to have, but the drawback is the less water you're able to penetrate. So not as deep of water, and you can't see out as far. So that is where we are getting our range from. You can see that all these units run the same power. So this is where that extended range is coming from. And there might be some magic in the actual transducer itself. That I don't know, but I can tell you a lot of it has to do with this frequency on these two transducers. What's the drawback to that? Well, if I had to speculate, and again, this is pure speculation because I haven't had my hands on one of these, is that This transducer is able to see much further, cover much more water, but the clarity might not be on par with the LVS 34 or the 32, being that those operate in a much higher frequency. So again, these are two completely different tools for two completely different things. So if you're a bass fisherman, shallow water, you don't need the 62 because what you have now is designed for that. This 62 is designed for deeper water people who need to penetrate more water, hence the lower frequency settings. Moving on, everything else is pretty much identical. So we have the same beam widths. It still has the same amount of elements in the transducer, but there is a substantial difference in the size of these transducers. The 62 is going to be a much larger transducer. So if you take a look at that real quick here, we have 8 inches compared to 6.4 inches. That is going to be a much larger transducer all the way around. So again, there is probably some magic in the actual hardware side of this thing as to why it can see further, but a lot of it has to do with that kilohertz settings or frequencies that I talked about earlier, but it is a larger transducer all around. Now everything else seems to be pretty similar. This thing, they did add one thing that I thought was cool, is they have a new mounting hole pattern here for third-party mounting systems. So that's a pretty cool little feature that wasn't there before. So be interesting to see what's going to be coming out in the future for that. But there you guys have it. Those are the main differences that I see and how we're achieving that extended range on the XR system. Alright guys, there you go. That is what we know about the LVS 62 transducer and their new LiveScope XR for that extended range. Now I think this is going to be a pretty cool transducer and it has its place. Again, it's meant for deeper water, but I think it might be a replacement for the PS30 that a lot of guys use for trolling, and that is kind of what I'm excited about. So hopefully I can get my hands on one of these things in the future and try it out and actually put some LVS 62 screenshots and video up on the channel. So stay tuned for that. But as always, if you guys haven't already, please hit that subscribe button and stay tuned for more tips and tricks on MG Marine Tech.